Ready.
So my first one is, what is a typical day in your job like?
So right now I'm doing all my sessions with my clients on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still social distancing, nothing face to face, everything with Zoom. And it's been easier than I thought it was going to be. It's not as horrible as I thought it was going to be. Zoom is much better than like a FaceTime. You know, you can see expressions and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So it's been a little bit easier than I thought. Some of my clients and I work with teenagers almost exclusively. And in my teenagers, it's been interesting. The ones with the higher social anxiety are doing a little bit better than they normally would have
Mm-hmm.
because they're not having the social anxiety piece when they're staying in all the time.
Yeah.
And so they can concentrate a little bit easier on their classes and on their schoolwork and all that kind of stuff. And they're not being put into social situations, and it's not their doing. So it's not like they're the only one that can't go out. No one can go out. So
Yeah.
that makes it easier. On the other side, all of the rest of my clients are experiencing a pretty high increase in their social or in their mental health.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely having a much harder time. I work with, most of the clients I work with have experienced trauma of significant amounts in the past. And so because of that, they're having a really hard time with this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just not feeling safe. And when you don't feel safe, you act out when
Yeah.
you're a teenager. And so because of that, I'm doing a lot more talking to probation officers and maybe court people and giving them updates on how different clients are doing once they get in trouble.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit more complicated and more administrative type work than I want. I want to just work with the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then next question is, what did you do before you worked with high schoolers?
Since I graduated with my degree in counseling psychology, I have been working with adopted and foster kids through trauma. So I've been doing this for about 10 years. And before that, I was actually the mom of an adopted kid. And that's where I got a lot of my experience. But to make money, I also had a business job. But that was my money job. And this is really my heart job and what I love to do.
Yeah. Okay. What are the most challenging parts of your job, and what are the most rewarding?
Okay, let's start with the good. The rewarding parts of the job is when I had this happen a week ago. A client that I work with used to get really dysregulated and would be aggravated or agitated and would run away from home or do something to get himself in trouble with the law, so that he would end up either in the hospital or in a juvenile detention center.
Mm-hmm.
And this last week, he was super highly agitated, and he actually texted me and said, I want to run so bad, and I need you to tell me not to. And I texted him back and said, you got this. Just the fact that you could stop and send me a text and not run the minute you thought of it,
Mm-hmm.
it is success. It's healing. He's doing so much better.
That's good.
So it's not like 100% just boom, I'm never going to feel that kind of pain again, but it is so much more of when I feel that kind of pain, I can handle it better. So those are the best times. They make me smile. When I know that I can help someone to understand a little bit more about why they do what they do in acting out, why they behave the way they behave, and to let them know that trauma causes brain changes that can show up in really strange and sometimes ugly behaviors. The hardest thing is when I hear somebody give up or want to give up, whether it's a parent or a child. That is really hard for me. When a parent has a hard time seeing that their child's behavior is a result of brain activity, which is a result of their trauma, and they call their kids bad kids, or they don't like their kids, or their kid is manipulative, or blaming instead of wanting to help. That's the work. That's the hardest.
Yeah.
For sure.
And do you work with the parents and the kids together, or is it just you and the kids?
No, I work with the parents and the kids a lot. I like to get to know the parents and the kids separately so that I can kind of get an idea of them individually. And then I like to work with them together to see how they interact. Because it's really important. It's really important to be able to tell if the parent agitates the kid more, or if the parent really can calm the kid. And if they can calm the kid, then that means the kid feels safe. And if they can't calm the kid, that means the kid doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And so then once I know that, it helps me figure out what to do next and kind of where to start in trying to help.
Let's see. And we kind of already covered things about coronavirus, but have you seen with your clients, have you seen a steady, not decrease, but have you seen it be extra hard on them in this time?
Absolutely. Anyone who didn't feel like they were a good student, learning online without the human interaction with the teacher has been really difficult. So that can really hurt their self-esteem and their kind of ego and how they're feeling about themselves. But this coronavirus, in so many ways, is bringing up a lot of sadness or depression or anxiety, or I call it angst. And because the parents are also feeling it, then that rubs off on the teenager as well. And so there's just no sense of everybody being okay and that everyone is safe.
Yeah.
And that really leads to a lot of mental health problems. I think that this is a pretty traumatic time for everybody. And so there will be some trauma reaction to everyone who's alive and aware of what's going on.
What are the ways that if a client is feeling the weight of the coronavirus on them, what is the way that you can help them through that?
Oh, good question. Very good question. The things I teach involve a lot of mindfulness, being present. When you go into the brain and you're in a big worry zone, so to speak, you are in your brain. You're in your amygdala in the back part of your brain. And when you're there, you either fight, you flight, or you freeze. And those are the only three reactions that can come from that part of the brain. And so most people in this time, because it's pretty hard to run right now because you can't leave the house, or, if you don't have anyone to fight with, and you might just freeze and you act, it actually just is kind of like you fall in on yourself, and then you can get into a pretty nasty mind place about the world and yourself. So what I do to try to get people out of it, first things, shoulder back, head up, it's like open your heart. So yoga, mindfulness, just take a look around. I teach something called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So whenever you find yourself really kind of closed down, taking a look and naming out loud if possible, not if you're in a classroom, that might get weird, but naming 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And really slowing down enough to do all of it and saying the words will bring you back into the front part of your brain where you can think.
That's cool.
And when you're up here, right, you can do things like, yeah, this is scary and I'm going to be okay. And my mom and dad are right there and my sisters are right there and I'm safe.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in this back part of your brain, you're just... So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a great way to get yourself out of that bad place. And another way is to really do some breathing. Deep breath in and a longer exhale than your inhale. And you will actually, through enough of that, bring yourself back to the front part of your brain as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're having a hard time, I combine them and do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then breathing. And it'll help you stay there longer. So those are 2 of my techniques that I like to use.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I forget to use them. And I even practice them during this time because I can get to that place just as easily as anyone.
Yeah.
Definitely hard days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, those are all the questions I have for you, professionally wise. So I'm going to stop recording.
Oh, good.